Hi, everyone. It's good
Hi,
to see you.
hi, Alex.
My name's Alex. I'm the Interim Director of Religious Education at the UU churches in Oakland and Livermore. And this is our weekly video pep talk. It's been a pretty wild time lately with the fires and on top of everything else, but I know you're all doing a great job. It's also a really special time right now in the Jewish calendar. It is the High Holy Days, the beginning or the end and the beginning of the Jewish calendar. So I have a few members here from Oakland and Livermore to talk about what the High Holy Days are and their experiences. So Gail and Emily, if you could just spend a very short time introducing yourself, what church you belong to, how long you've been there, and maybe what sort of roles you have taken on in leadership at your church. Gail, would you go first?
Sure. I've been at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Livermore for, I think, 22 years now, maybe 23. I've done a variety of things. I've been at the board of directors. I was president at the board of directors. I have taken different positions there. I've been on membership committees. I've been on fundraising. I've been on just about, I wouldn't say everyone, but many of the various committees and groups that keep a church going. We've seen a lot of ministers come and go and a fair amount of interim ministers. And I was also on the selection committee for our present minister, Reverend Ellie. And that was a very enlightening experience. I think I learned more about Unitarian Universalism than I had in the previous 20 years altogether.
Great, thank you. Thank you, and we're glad to have you here today.
Thank
And
you.
Emily, how about you?
My name's Emily Stoper. I've been a member of the First Unitarian Church of Oakland for 21 years. I've been an extremely active member, starting almost immediately. I've served on the board. I have also led a good many services, summer services for many years, and others as well. And that's been very rewarding for me. I've also taught quite a few courses in our adult religious education program, and have been the organizer of that program for many years, and on the organizing committee. I've just been very involved in a lot of ways in the church.
Great, thank you. I'm glad to have you here as well. So my first question is, what are the High Holy Days and why are they important?
The High Holy Days are the most important Jewish holidays of the year. Yom Kippur is a day in which one gets to reflect on our wrongdoing over the course of the year, and to really take a hard look, not just at breaking the law, but also at just anything you do to hurt another person or to hurt the planet. So you systematically look at that, not just on that one day, but for several weeks beforehand. You really spend some time on it. You look at it, you genuinely repent for that in your heart. You promise to do better the next time. To the extent it's possible, you offer some sort of restitution. If you've stolen money or taken money in a wrong way, you restore that money. If you have hurt somebody's feelings, you apologize and try to restore the relationship, and so on. And there's also a great deal of ritual associated with this. And then on the day of Yom Kippur, of course, in Judaism, the day runs from sundown the night before to sundown the next day. But on that day, you go to the synagogue, and you've spent a couple of weeks, and you do more of this during the service, purifying your life and your heart so that your soul is at the purest it's going to be. And you are the most open to experiencing God at that time. And so it is a very, if you've really done this, this is a very powerful spiritual existence, spiritual experience. And you do it in the context of a huge amount of ritual, a lot of very beautiful music, a large number of other people who are doing it together with you, a lot of sense of Jewish tradition. Very typically, the service will be in Hebrew, but you'll have a book in front of you so that you can read along in English and see what's happening, or whatever the vernacular is. And so you just have, it is the key spiritual moment. And its closeness to Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, is no coincidence. So you start each year, at least theoretically, pure, with a clean slate. And you make a promise to God to do better next year.
That sounds really beautiful. Gail, do you have anything to add about what the High Holy Days are about?
Well, Emily, I'll check in with you, but my understanding also is that that is the time that God looks at us and kind of weighs what we have done well, how kind we have been, how we've cared for the earth, how we've cared for each other, and where we have fallen down. And it's a weighing of, and there are some people that get through it pretty easily, and there are some people that really are having some failures. They've got a lot of repenting to do. And then I guess most of us that kind of, we have some forgiveness to ask for, some recognition of how we are going to change for the better. One of the things, and I guess I'll check with you also, Emily, that my father did, and these are just memories that I have, is that one is supposed to go to a river or a stream or someplace that has water and kind of throw the things out of your pockets and throw your sins into that water to be carried away.
Yes, the Jewish water communion.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, I remember that very much so. And that was the notion that you can throw your sins away, I think is very important. It's in that way, it's forgiving. But it's not taken lightly. I mean, you have to, at that same time, make the promise not to sin again, not to repeat it.
Are there any other ways to celebrate Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah?
Well, Yom Kippur is celebrated by fasting.
Yeah.
You unless you're ill or a very small child or have some reason not to, you are expected to fast, and that sets the day apart very much from other days. And so you fast from sundown on the eve of Yom Kippur, Erev Yom Kippur, until sundown the following day. And that's really important. Rosh Hashanah, on the other hand, which is a 2-day holiday, is just pure celebration. As I don't really celebrate it myself, but honey and apples are traditional sweets.
I brought some honey.
Exactly.
Oh, yes, good. Great.
And it would begin with the mother or the woman of the household saying the prayers over the candles. Well, much of the religion, again, is male dominated, the religious services, at least traditionally. I'm sure that's changed, but were male oriented. The lighting of the candles, both on the Sabbath candles and also the candles to begin Rosh Hashanah, were done by the woman in the household. Because I have my memories. We, like many folks, we did some things that were just kind of there, and we did them, and then we went on and had dinner and never spoke about them again. But
now, of course, in Reform Judaism and Conservative Judaism and Jewish Renewal, which is what the synagogue Kehillah is affiliated with, in all of these, the sexist aspects of Judaism have really been left behind.
Good.
And I think that probably more than half of the rabbis are women now. And there's a lot of retranslation of the Hebrew terms for God that take away a lot of the gender connection there. So there's a reinterpretation of the traditional faith.
That's great.
Which makes it, I'm just very fond of Kehillah. That's the place I really like to go for the holy days. And in Kehillah, the tribal nature of Judaism, the sexist nature of Judaism, and all of that is just isn't there. I mean, or at least there's a tremendous effort made not to have it be there. I would say that Jewish Renewal and to a great extent Reform Judaism have the same values as UU, promote the same values in the world, and are also very active in trying to make a better world.
You mean like justice and equity, compassion and peace and things like that?
Yeah. The justice shall roll down like waters. I mean, it's from the Jewish Bible.
It is, yeah. So let's say I have neighbors who are Jewish, and I want to wish them a happy holiday or something like that. Is there an appropriate way for me to recognize their holidays?
Well, when I was a child, we would say Good Yontif.
Yeah.
Which means good holiday in Yiddish, basically.
Yeah.
Sort of. Yontif, though, is the Hebrew word for holiday. But today, Jews are using less Yiddish and more Hebrew, and so you would say L'Shana Tova, which means Happy New Year. Good Yontif can be used for any holiday. It just means happy holiday.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I didn't know that distinction. Thank you.
If there's a term for Yom Kippur, the special word for not Yom Kippur, I don't know it.
Can you think of anything, Gail?
I think they might be, but I don't know. I can't. I mean, so long ago.
Yeah,
quite all right.
And then it would have been Yiddish. It would not have been Hebrew. You're right. I mean, everything was.
Yiddish and Hebrew are extremely different languages, but they're much together. Yiddish is a dialect of German.
Right.
Good.
But it was the spoken language of Jews around the world, pretty much, wasn't it?
No, not Jews around the world, of Ashkenazic Jews.
Yes, I stand corrected, yes.
Which is what most American Jews are.
Right, but not for the Sephardic Jews. Yeah.
Yeah, and not to mention Jews who are from the Middle East, from Iran and India and
Ethiopia,
Africa, right?
Right, exactly. No, yeah.
It's my understanding as an outsider that Rosh Hashanah is much more celebratory, so you wish someone a happy Rosh Hashanah, but Yom Kippur is much more solemn and contemplative, and so that's probably why there isn't such a greeting for Yom Kippur.
Yes, that's probably right.
Yeah.
So Rosh Hashanah is the new year. You say L'Shana Tova, which means Happy New Year, or Good New Year. And it has always struck me as getting it right, partly because I was a teacher for so many years. First spent a lot of years at school and then became a teacher. The year began in September. It was very clear.
Oh.
I became a Unitarian, and the so-called church year begins in September also. And, the fiscal year begins October 1st in a lot of ways. And It just feels to me as if the year begins in September. And I don't know what happened, what crazy person thought it was January 1st. So I think the Jews got that one right.
There's something about harvest where it feels like we're completing something and preparing something.
Yes, that too. September is harvest time.
So I'm curious a little bit of, what was your childhood like? What is your Jewish identity grounded in, and where do you see it interacting with your Unitarian Universalist identity?
Yeah. So I grew up in a very secular Jewish home, not just secular, but anti-religious. My parents really were not at all interested in the religion. They thought religion in general was nonsense, and they also definitely thought Judaism didn't make much sense. They avoided any kind of Jewish practice to the extent possible, given that we lived in a cultural world of Jews. We were, every summer, we went to basically a Jewish socialist summer camp. And this was kind of the heart of where we found friends and where we created community. It was where I discovered the reason I'm so active in UU is that I learned the joy of having a community that was created by all of the members, and that was democratically organized, and that I understood that the more you participated, the more you would get out of it. And that was in a very Jewish context. Everybody in that community was Jewish, except for, there were 75 families, maybe half a dozen of them involved one Gentile who was married to a Jew. So that was a lot of my kind of Jewish cultural learning came from there. I never went into a synagogue except for, weddings, funerals, and bar mitzvahs. I did not have any glimmering that this would be something that I could look into and discover the beauty of until I became a UU 20 years ago in my late 50s. And then my minister told me, hey, other religions, good thing. You should look into them. You're looking for spiritual experiences? Check out Kehillah. And boy, was he right, because I went, I loved it. I kept on going for many, many years afterwards.
Thank you, Emily. Gail, how about you?
I grew up in a very Jewish neighborhood in the Bronx in New York. And there were some very religious people around. It was in a tenement building, 6 stories, 10 apartments on each floor. I think maybe with the exception of 2 households, we were all Jewish. And people, some were very religious, some weren't, but it was very Jewish. The foods, the kosher butcher markets, much of that existed there. My father was raised Orthodox, was not practicing until later in his life. And then he did start to do some more practicing, where he began to pray and to daven, which is the Jewish, in those years anyway, and I have to keep going back because this is a long time ago, would be a way of praying where men would move back and forth in their prayers as they said their prayers.
In Hebrew, of course.
In Hebrew, yes, he spoke Hebrew. Yes, he spoke Hebrew. And was very, and he would put on the film, and he would dress up in the very Orthodox look, and you can see pictures of some of these old Orthodox members, which is quite different than the Hasidim, which I think I do want to make it very clear that Orthodox Judaism is not the same as Hasidim, which is a little bit different. So I had a little bit more in the household. We did have Friday night candles that my mother lit, and we did play the dreidel at Hanukkah. So I had some of that, but it was much more cultural, social than it was religious. There wasn't much God talk. And I didn't get very much involved with anything until also in my mid-50s when I joined the Unitarian Universalist Church in Livermore. And I had mixed feelings about that because I could not see myself as a Christian. And this had been called a Protestant church. And that was a little hard to swallow at first. Or when my family would pick up the phone and say, "What are you doing Sunday?" And I'd say, "I'm going to church." And there'd be this dead silence. So, I mean, there wasn't anything. What I have learned and what I do love and what makes me at home as a UU is that you don't have to give up any of your beliefs to be a good UU. You take all the goodness with you and all the good beliefs and values, and you incorporate them with Unitarian Universalism values. And so once I saw that, it became very much a home. And, you know, I worried in the beginning, gee, if my father was dead by that time, but I would think, if my daddy was here, would he approve? And I'd look around. It's nice to know that he would, that he too would see the continuation of values and the inherent worth of people. So for me, it was a wonderful home.
I would say the same thing. And I would also say that I would love it, and I've been somewhat vocal about this, if the name of our congregation were changed from First Unitarian Church of Oakland to just Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Oakland. Church just sends off the message, this is Christian. And I think we'd have a lot more Jewish members if we stopped calling ourselves a church, because we're not. We're really not a Christian organization. We have Christians in our organization. Christianity is one of our sources, as is Judaism. But we celebrate Christmas, which I have enjoyed. And
we celebrate Passover. I've made a number of Seders where we have 20, 30, or 40 people at the church having a Seder. So we do it all.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that distinction, Emily, and I think that's a conversation that's being had all over Unitarian Universalism. So
yes.
I appreciate that. Do you all have any final thoughts, anything we didn't get to address before we go?
I think that it's very worthwhile for Unitarian Universalism to honor and draw on Judaism and our other religious sources. And I wish our congregation did that more. And that's Judaism, it's Christianity, it's Sufism, it's Buddhism, it's Hinduism. All of these religions have a great deal to offer us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And that's one of the things that I think is beautiful about the promise and the premise of Unitarian Universalism is that we recognize the beauty of so many different religious traditions, and the challenge is how do we achieve that? And I think that requires conversations and relationships just like we're having here. So I want to thank you both for your time. I really appreciate it. To our audience, if you are Jewish and Unitarian Universalist, put in the comments how you celebrate or how your family celebrates. I'd love to hear more about Unitarian Universalism and Judaism. And I hope you all have a wonderful week, and Lashana Tova to both of you, and a Happy New Year, and hope to see you all around at church. So thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you for doing this,
Thank you,
Alex.
yes,
It's
thank you so
wonderful.
much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.
Bye.